Hey there, drone fans. Rick here again from Drone Valley. In today's clip, I'd like to cover my top 5 favorite accessories for the brand new DJI Mavic Air. Now, every time a new quad is released, it seems like the accessory companies kick into overdrive and start flooding the market with products that they think you're going to want for your new quad. And it can be very confusing because everything looks good on a website, but if you're like me, you've got to start thinking to yourself, am I going to use that accessory? Is that something I'm spending my hard-earned money on that's going to be effective and really help me when I'm out flying? And what I tend to do when I get a new quad like the Mavic Air is I'll sit down and I'll think, what can I do to enhance that flying experience? Is there some accessory that'll make it more fun or safer or easier to use? And then I'll buy a bunch of those. I'll buy them from different manufacturers. I'll bring them in and I'll fly with them on my quad for a couple of weeks to really put them through their paces to make sure that anything I talk about is something that I use myself and has that durability and long-lasting usefulness that you're looking for in an accessory. So what this clip's going to show you are the 5 accessories that I take with me pretty much every time I go out to fly, and each of these, for their own reasons, make it a little safer, a little bit more fun, or a little bit easier to put this quad up in the air. So when I go through these, I'll give you an indication of how I use them and what benefits they provide, and that'll give you a good basis to decide if it's something you want to add to your kit or not. So stay tuned and I'll get into it. The first accessory I'd like to cover will not only improve your transmission quality, but will also increase the distance you can reliably fly with your quad. It's called a parabolic range extender, and it simply slides over the antennas on your Mavic Air remote to redirect a lot of the wasted signal that would normally be coming back to you downfield towards your quad. Now, I've seen a few YouTube channels out there where they're sort of kicking up some controversy about this product even working, and they're saying they tested it and it didn't really increase their range, and they're calling it snake oil. And I'm confused by that because I've tested it extensively, both through flying quads all the way back through the Phantom series, in addition to testing it electronically with RF meters and field meters. And in every case, I see a stronger signal downfield when I use something like this against when I use the remote on its own. And honestly, the physics behind it are sound. They go way back to the time of Archimedes in ancient days, where he used a parabolic reflector to focus sunlight to a specific point at a distance. And it's the basis for a lot of technology since then. So things like home dish networks, any kind of parabolic receiver uses a parabolic fixture like this to focus that signal onto a receiver. Even flashlights. Flashlights use a parabolic receiver behind the bulb to actually throw more of the light downfield. So it's a solid electronic principle, and it works fantastic on the remote control. Now, to use this thing, you're going to want to slide it over the antennas, and there's only 2 things you have to keep in mind. Number 1, inside the unit, and I'll do a blow up of it, there's a large opening and a small opening. You want the large opening to go down. And the other thing you have to be careful of, you want to make sure you point it away from you. So don't put it on there so you can see it facing you. You want it facing away from you. So you slide it down over the antennas, and that's all there is to it. Now, if you put it on backwards, it's going to be facing you, but keep it this way. And all you're doing, again, is redirecting the signal that would normally be coming back to you, because these are 360-degree radiation patterns. Normally they're sending some signal downfield, some signal to the side, and some back to you, and of course some up as well. But you're redirecting that signal that would be coming back to you downfield, because it's hitting that parabolic reflector, it's focusing and sending it downfield. The only caution I have when using these is, number 1, make sure you put them on so they're facing your quad. The second thing is, this tends to make the remote fairly directional, whereas with it off, you've got a 360-degree pattern where you can actually transmit to a quad even flying behind you. I don't know why you'd want to do that, but you could. What these do is they basically focus all of the signal towards the quad. Now, they're not pinpoint accurate, so it's not like you have to be facing it right at the quad every time. They're about 120 degrees of radiated field downfield, which means if you're pointing in the general compass direction of where your quad is, you're going to be fine. So don't worry about always facing it at the quad and following the quad like you're controlling it remotely. As long as you're facing the general direction of the quad, you'll be fine. And that's pretty much it. There's no batteries, there's no, tricky certifications or any kind of adjustments you've got to do. You just slide them on there and they work, and that's great. The only other thing that I'll talk about is there are other methods to increase your signal strength. Now, I feel like the Mavic Air does a real good job today with their enhanced Wi-Fi transmission quality. I've had no issues flying it, well to my edge of visual line of sight with it without issue. But I do find that occasionally, if I'm flying in crowded areas with a lot of Wi-Fi signals, or if I'm flying in areas that have buildings or trees or other obstructions, if I get in and around those type of obstructions, I may have issues with signal quality dropouts. This has fixed it for me. So my experience has been, Using these gives me about 25 to 50% better signal strength no matter where I'm flying, and it gives me a lot more distance reliably when I'm flying as well. I don't care so much that it'll fly an additional mile beyond what it would normally fly. What I care more about is when I'm flying in close, I want to make sure I have an absolutely reliable signal, and these guys provide that. Now, some of the other ways you can increase your signal strength would be to replace these antennas with very specialized directional antennas, but that's going to require you to crack open your remote. That will give you a better result, but I always worry tearing open something this delicate to replace those antennas is kind of a risky move. So for me, these are the absolute best solution because they're inexpensive, they're easy to use, and they really work against the antennas to increase that signal strength downfield. So the only other caution I'd have when you're looking at these, as with every accessory, there's a lot of companies out there that the minute somebody comes out with a product like this, right away the factory starts spinning up to turn out the clones. And even though they look the same, they don't work the same. And really it comes down to how accurate is that parabolic on the back. Because if that parabolic is a little bit off, you're not going to get the focusing effect downfield to bring those two beams together to hit the quad. So if you buy, some of them are really inexpensive, a couple of bucks, you're going to get some that either don't have a great reflective material on the back, or maybe they don't have the right parabolic curve to it, and you're going to have issues with the focusing downfield. So again, I would just be really careful when you're searching for these to make sure you get a set that you can trust. So that's pretty much it for the parabolic reflectors. I like them an awful lot. They're on my remote every time I fly because I just want to make sure that I've got the strongest, most reliable signal possible, and these guys help improve that signal strength. My next favorite accessory for the Mavic Air is a foldable landing pad. Now I know some of you are probably thinking, Rick, I don't need a landing pad. I'm always flying in areas where I've got a sidewalk or a dry parking lot I can land on, or I'm one of those people that likes to hand launch and hand catch my quads, so when would I ever use the product? Well, even though both of those things are okay, this will still help protect your quad, and I'll explain why. If you think about the surfaces you land on, whether it be a sidewalk, a parking lot, or anywhere really, there's a lot of debris that you may not notice on that surface. So the next time you go to that location you like to fly, get down on your hands and knees, just rub your hand across that surface. You're going to find a lot of dust and debris. And if you don't believe me, bring a piece of tape with you, stick it down on the surface and take a look at it. All those fine particles get kicked up in the air when your quad's landing. So the downwash from the props will create turbulence underneath it, and that stuff's going to become airborne, which means it's going to get sucked into your quad, it's going to get on your camera, it's going to get up in your gimbal assembly and make it all gritty. So over time, it's going to really damage your quad. By having a flat surface like this as a barrier between that actual physical surface and your quad, none of that debris is going to get kicked up inside your quad. It's also really good, and you're in those locations, to have a designated landing area so people know you're flying a quad, they know where it's going to land, and more importantly, when the quad takes off, it takes a look down at the position it took off from to set its return to home position. So having a really clearly marked area like a landing pad just gives you that extra security in knowing that your quad knows where it took off and it can find that landing pad to land. Now, even if you're a hand catcher, this can come in handy, and here's why. A lot of times when you hand launch your quad, they're beautiful conditions, but you're going to be flying for 15 or 20 minutes in some cases. So when you launch that quad, the conditions on the ground could change quite a bit. They could become windier. You might have a bunch of people coming over to ask you about your quad, and all of a sudden you've got to land the quad. Having a landing pad as an alternative location now allows you to put the quad down on that landing pad, not have to worry about trying to grab a quad in the wind that's buffeting back and forth, or you can still talk to those people and have it land 10 feet away on the landing pad, which is a really cool thing for them to see. So for me, I always take a landing pad with me. I use it most times when I'm out, especially if I'm in like soft grass or dirt, or there's kind of weeds around me. Putting this thing down flattens that surface and gives me a nice clean location for me to land that quad. Now there's a bunch of different landing pads on the market. I like to use one that's collapsible, and I picked the 75 centimeter size because it's the perfect size for landing quads like the Mavic Air, the Mavic Pro, the Spark. There are bigger ones that I use for my Phantom and my Inspire, and there are smaller ones, but the smaller ones are tougher to land on. So the 75 centimeter for me is sort of in the center of that Goldilocks zone. It's not too big, not too small, it's just right. Now, the one I use is spring loaded, and what I mean by that is there's an actual spring assembly on the outside, spring metal on the outside of it, so when it folds up, it's got a lot of energy stored up in it. Now, I'm going to be honest with you, the first couple times I opened this, when I was showing people about it, I bopped a few people on the nose because it kind of goes on its own. So when I open it, I'll show you how it springs open. The reason that spring metal is important is because a lot of the cheaper versions of these landing pads don't have any weight in the outside of it, and when you lay that landing pad down on the ground, the prop wash will kick up a corner and you may get the landing pad up in the blades, or if you're flying and it's windy, the landing pad will move across the ground, which will screw up your return to home position and also make it difficult to land. So when you buy one of these, make sure you've got a little additional weight in the outside edge of it. So let me open it up and you'll see how it pops. All right, so that's the landing pad opened. Now it's got two surfaces. I've got the blue surface on one side and I've got an orange surface on the other side. And that's really nice because you can see I've used it a lot. If I'm out on the beach, maybe I'll want the orange one down. If I'm out on grass, I might want the lighter side. If I'm on a lighter surface, I may want to put the blue side down. But either way, I got a really nice place to land. And again, with that spring metal on the outside, it's always going to be totally open, which means I've got the largest area possible to land on. And the other thing that's nice about this too is that with some of the quads, like the Mavic Air, the ground clearance between your quad and the ground and that camera is really minimal. I mean, it's very, very close to the ground. So if I were to land even on a hard surface and there was anything sticking up, this thing would come down and sort of mash that grass or that weed that I happen to hit. So having the landing pad just means that if I'm out in the snow, I'm out in grass, I'm out in dirt, I put this thing down, I know I've got a nice clean area that's not going to kick up a bunch of debris, get sucked up inside my quad and cause me issues. So pretty straightforward. It's really easy to take along. Now, the trick with this, and I haven't seen this done too many times, is now that I've opened it, how do I close it? A lot of people trip over that. So what you're going to do is you're going to twist it in and of itself, in and on itself, I should say, like this. So you're going to twist this way with the pad and then close it in on itself. So in essence, you're going to do that, which puts it back into a circular place. Put it inside the case so it doesn't spring up and bop me on the nose. Then I'll talk about some of the other accessories that come with it. So you get the pad itself as part of the kit. You also get some reflective stickers, which you can stick on the top surface of this. And that's really good when you're coming down at dusk because the lights from the quad will illuminate that and make it really easy to see it, especially if it's getting a little bit dark. You also get 3 stakes. So the landing pad itself had little tabs on the end where you can stake this down to the ground. The only time I actually do that is when I'm flying on a beach because the beach tends to be very uneven and it'll lift up and move around. These will actually hold it down, and I'll use 1 or 2 of these to stake it down in those kind of conditions, or if it's really windy. But other than that, I just basically open it up. It takes about 8 seconds to open the thing, throw it down on the ground, and I'm off and flying. And even if I decide I'm going to hand launch or hand catch that afternoon, having that ability to sort of land on it 10 feet away from me so that there are people near me and I'm not freaking them out by landing a drone close by, just gives me that alternate landing zone, which is really a nice option to have. So that's pretty much for the landing pad. Inexpensive, really easy to carry along, works like a champ, and they're extremely durable. So one of the recommended accessories that I use and I would suggest you take a look at for your kit. A tablet adapter is an accessory you'll need to consider if you want to use a display device that is bigger than the controller can support natively. And what I mean by that is the Mavic Air controller was built to be incredibly small and portable, folds up into a tiny little package, but because of its small size, it can only accommodate a certain sized phone or tablet down here between the arms. Even if you stretch them way out, you still can't jam a big tablet down there. So if you're using a phone or a tablet that's small enough to fit in the bottom and you can make the connection through the side, you don't have to worry about a tablet adapter. But if you're using one that's too thick to fit in here, too wide, or it's just too big in general, you'll have to use a tablet adapter to sort of lift that above the controller. Now, some of the smaller tablets will fit fine. Curiously, the iPad Mini 4 slides right in here perfectly. It's thin enough to fit up in here. The only thing is if you're using something larger than a cell phone, you'll have to disconnect that side cable, put that aside, and make a connection from this bottom USB to whatever connection you've got on your tablet so that you can tether the two up. But the iPad Mini 4 fits in the bottom and you're off and flying. That's great. If it's bigger than this or thicker than this, it's not going to fit down there and you're going to need a tablet adapter to make it work. So I've researched a lot of different tablet adapters and they range in functionality and price from about 15 bucks for the really, really cheap plastic ones, all the way up to $70 or $80 for some of those, precision made aluminum ones. And that's a lot of money for me to spend on a tablet adapter, even though they're really cool, they're big, they're heavy. So I want to settle somewhere in the middle. So I've looked at the price range in the middle, somewhere between $25 and $40. Most of those tend to be a combination of plastic and metal. And I think I found the perfect one. I actually call it the ultimate tablet adapter. And some of the things I'm looking at with the tablet adapters are I want it to be able to accommodate a large variety of sizes of both tablets and phones. I want it to fold small and I want it to be incredibly portable. So this is the unit fully assembled. Basically to use it, you're going to unfold it, you're going to spin this tablet adapter up, and this is going to fit in the bottom arms where the actual connections would have been or phone would have been before. So you're still going to disconnect that side cable, slide this into the 2 arms underneath, pop your tablet in here, and you can see it can accommodate really large tablets. Pop your tablet in there, make a connection between that tablet and the controller, and you're off and flying at that point. Some of the other cool features of this one, these guys were clever enough in the bottom to actually build this hidden compartment that you can pop open that'll let you store a few things. So in this bottom compartment, there's a little wrench that comes with it. And you'd think, why did I give you a wrench? Well, the wrench allows you to tighten up the two nuts here, which control how this spins and how this spins, because a lot of people, if you're using heavier tablets, you're going to want that to be pretty tight so it's not flopping around on you. So when you're in the field, you can actually tighten that up. They give you labels here for these little slots in the bottom. I don't know if you can see those or not, but there are slots in the bottom that are cut or circular cutouts there. Those are for the filters. So if you're flying the Mavic Air and using Mavic Air filters, they'll pop in the bottom, and that gives you a really nice carrying case to carry those filters along with you. So kind of a cool thing. I also use this to keep some of those wipes, those alcohol wipes in there. So if I want to clean up something like the blades or something, when I'm done, I've got an alcohol wipe in the bottom. In addition to that, it really is built with two eyelets on it as well. And it comes with a really nice lanyard. So this lanyard allows you to connect up, if you like the dual connections, you can connect up to the two side ones. And when you drop your controller, it'll hang around your neck, so you can use your hands to do other things. It also comes with a single lanyard connection here, and I'll show you how to use that as well. So from my perspective, this is really built to be incredibly flexible. And again, the way you use this is you basically slide it into the handles like this. Clamp them down on the sides. Now it's a nice tight fit, which I like too. A lot of these are really thin and they get slippery in the bottom part. They slide out on you. But once you have that clamped in there, then I spin the tablet adapter up. I extend it, I push the button and it'll pop up to whatever size I need. I put the tablet in it and then I can be off and flying. Now the nice part about it is if you have a smaller tablet, you can still use this because there are two little arms that flip up here to support those smaller tablets like the iPad Mini 4. Now again, this will fit in the handles, but if I want to use it up here, I sit it on those arms, close this guy on it, and it's got rubber on this so you're not going to scratch up your tablet, and then I'm off and flying. Now, you'll find when you're using these things, it takes a little bit getting used to, but you can see how this is resting on my hands. I like that because it allows me to sort of support the tablet and still use my thumbs underneath. This one also has an extension down here that I can rest against my chest. So when I'm flying, I can have it on my thumbs and on my chest and give me a really nice support structure for that tablet. But it puts it right in front of me so I can see everything I need to do. After you've flown a while, you get used to where all the buttons and controls are. But if you need to look, you can flip it forward like that, take a look, and then flip it back down to get at those controls and still see your display. So it doesn't interfere with the antennas. There's no concern there about the antennas, you know, being bent or pushed out of the way because of the tablet. So the adapter itself is pretty nice. Now, to use this lanyard, you have a couple of different choices. Like I'd mentioned, you can string it around your neck and use dual connections on those bottom two loops. But if you're one of those people that likes to have it a little further away from you, or you only like a single lanyard on your neck, you can make an adjustment to this and pull it out quite a bit. Put this around your neck as a single lanyard, and then connect that up to the single connection on the back and have a single connection to the lanyard. So it gives you a lot of flexibility. I've used this thing for the last 3 drones I've flown, so it works with the Spark, works with the Mavic, and it now works with the Mavic Air. And for me, it does everything I need it to do. It's lightweight, it's plastic, so okay, it's not aluminum like a lot of the more expensive ones are, but for my money, having something that's portable that I can fold up this quickly, put back in this really nice carrying case that it comes with, slide it in my bag and be off and done. And literally, what'd that take me? About 15 seconds to package it up. It's just a great accessory to have. And if you're in a situation where you want to use larger tablets, I'm lucky that I use the iPad Mini 4 most days, but there are days where I use larger tablets with it. I absolutely need some kind of tablet adapter to make that work. And this one, for my money, is the best I've seen. Now, again, there's a ton of them out there. There's a ton that are 3D printable, where if you've got one of those robotic printers where you can actually print your own, probably work okay for you. I don't know what that'll cost you for the materials, but something like this is, you know, less than 35 bucks. And I think for my money, having that with me, even though I don't need it for every occasion, when I do have larger tablets, it's nice to have that along for the ride. So that's what a tablet adapter will do for you. This accessory is one you may want to consider if you intend on using a larger display device with your Mavic Air controller. Now, I'd already mentioned that the guys at DJI built this controller to accommodate a wide variety of phones in the bottom. And they included a really nice connection cable along the side with a floating connector down here that made it super simple to actually connect this up. So when you close those arms, as long as that connector lined up with the port on your phone, it would make a nice smooth connection and you can go out and fly. The challenge is if you try to use a larger device, maybe a smaller tablet in the bottom arms, the minute you slid that in there, the connection that you needed to make to that particular tablet was well below where this connector sat. So not a big deal. You can actually disconnect that cable, set it aside, and use the cable that came with the tablet and make a connection to this bottom full-size USB connection. But there's still issues with that, and let me show you. So I've got an iPad Mini 4 here, which is the tablet that I use with the Mavic Air when I fly. And I've got the original Apple cable here to connect it up. So let me do that real quick. So I'll plug into the USB and I'll plug into the tablet. And two things about this worry me a little bit. The first one is obvious. I've got a nice long cable now dangling down. That can be a challenge if you're out in rough areas because they'll get stuck on trees or bushes, but that's not that big a deal. You can fix that pretty quickly by bowling it up and put a rubber band on it. It's not the neatest connection, but it works okay. The bigger issue is this connector right here, because when I'm holding the remote, my hand is up against that connector because it's sticking out, from that pretty far out, about a half an inch. And when I push in on that, number one, it's uncomfortable to hold it like this. It's just something you're going to feel all the time and be annoyed by. But more importantly, by bending that cable so much at that degree, I'm going to damage that connector. And actually, the stress I'm putting on the internal connections aren't good either. So when I first started flying with this, I was happy that I could get the remote working with a larger tablet like the iPad Mini 4, but I didn't like that connection. So way back when I first started flying the Mavic Pro, which is the first place that we actually noticed this problem, I started working with some of the manufacturers that we know, and we designed a specialized cable that makes this connection that gives you a right angle here so it's less obtrusive when you're actually holding it. So let me show you how that works. So let me get rid of the original cable, and I'll use this custom cable we designed, which basically does the same thing, but it does it a lot neater. So you can see that right away it's the exact right length for your iPad Mini 4 or any small tablet you're going to connect up. I've got a right angle connection on here, which isn't perfect, but it's thin enough where it actually marries up at the edge of that top piece. So when you're holding it, you don't even notice the cable's there. And it's nice and neat in the back, so it's not going to be dangling down or you have to worry about balling it up and all the rest of that. And it fits perfectly. Now, we make these cables for both Apple and Android products. I've got USB-C, I've got the micro USB, and I've got the lightning connection for it. I also make a longer cable. So for example, if you're going to use the tablet adapter, this one will be too short. So I make a 20 length and a 30 length, so that if you're going to go with something that fits in the handles, you can use a small connection like this and it'll fit perfectly. But if you're going to use a tablet adapter, you want a little extra length, so go with the 30 centimeter piece. That'll actually fit there. Now again, this is one of those nice to have things because it'll neaten up the arrangement for you. It also makes it a lot more comfortable to hold it. It's not a must-have. You can certainly use the cable that came with the original tablet, but for my money, for the couple of bucks it's going to cost me to have this with me, it's just a really nice way to marry these things up, and it pretty much looks stock, once you get it connected up to the controller. So just another thought, if you're going to be using a larger display device, something you might want to consider to add to your kit. This last accessory is a great way to protect your Mavic Air controller whenever you're out for a day of flying. Now, I love the Mavic Air for a lot of different reasons, but to me its biggest advantage is its small size and its portability. The fact that I can fold it up small enough where it'll slip in any bag that I'm bringing along for that afternoon means that I never have to worry about bringing the drone. It just comes with me everywhere, which in turn means I'm getting more flight time. So folding this thing up and throwing it inside the custom case that DJI includes with the kit shows me that I've got a package about the same size as a sneaker. So if I'm going on a plane, I throw it in my luggage, or if I'm going out for the afternoon, I'll throw it in a backpack. I don't even have to consider that it's with me. It's hard for me to believe that that's a drone that I can actually fly a couple of miles. But that leaves the controller. Now, I know DJI worked really hard on making this portable as well, and the big problem with older controllers, the Mavic and the Spark, were that these joysticks were always at risk of getting bent. So the engineers at DJI said, you know what, we can make these removable. So they built them so you can unscrew them. They even built little spaces down the bottom where you can clip them in and fold this thing up. And the intention there was to take these off after you're done flying, clip them in the bottom arms, fold this thing up, and then slide it into the pouch behind here, which works pretty well. But after I've flown this thing a couple of months, and I've got a couple of them that I've had up in the air, I find that I'm not lazy, but it worries me from an engineering perspective that I'm unscrewing and screwing these things in, which means there's fatigue on the metal. I've dropped these a half a dozen times when I'm out trying to put them in or taking them off, which means when they hit the ground, they're going to pick up dirt and debris. Am I now transferring that dirt and grit and stuff inside here? Is it eventually going to wear out so they're loose? So I've decided I don't want to be yanking these things off. And the challenge there is if I fold this guy up with those still attached and I throw this in my bag, now these guys are at risk of getting bent, right? They're going to get damaged, so I have to take them off. Or if I take them off, maybe I don't want to slide them in the back here because it makes a really big package. It's harder to throw in my backpack. So I've been looking for a way to sort of carry this like it is now for some time. And I found a manufacturer that builds a customized case that looks very similar to the one that you'd use for the actual Mavic Air. And it's built to actually take the remote control, just like this. You drop it in the case, you close it up, and you can take it with you. Now I have two nice protected packages that are both crush proof, they're both water resistant, dirt resistant, and I can pack them together in a suitcase or in different parts of my backpack. It just gives me a lot more flexibility to carry it with me. And when I get there, I just open it up, fold out the arms, put up the antennas, and I can fly. The nice thing too is that it's big enough where if you're using one of these specialized cables to make the connection to a tablet or larger display, that'll fit in there. If you want further protection, you can put a joystick protector on top of it, still close the case, and everything will be fine. So it's not like I use this every time I fly, but when I travel, especially if I'm taking a suitcase and going on an airplane, I'm putting the drone in this case, I'm putting my remote controller in this case, and again, that gives me the flexibility to put them anywhere I need to inside my luggage, and I know that the controller is going to come out of there completely unscratched, unscathed, and ready to use. So for me, it's not a must-have accessory, but it's a nice-to-have accessory, and it's not that expensive. So if you're looking for a solution to carry a remote control outside of the case, or if you didn't get a Fly More combination, this might be a really good alternative to use when you're out there for an afternoon of flying. That's pretty much it for today, so thanks an awful lot for watching. If you have any questions about the stuff I talked about today, drop them in the comments below and I promise to get back to you as quickly as I can. If you haven't subscribed yet to the channel, you might want to hit that subscribe button. I have a ton more clips coming on a bunch of drone topics and a lot of other high-tech gear that I'm playing with right now and working through reviews on. So stay tuned to the channel, you'll see some pretty exciting stuff coming. I'll also put links below where you can find all these products on the Drone Valley website. And again, if you hit those links, you'll be supporting us here at Drone Valley and you'll be sure that you get the products that I talked about. A lot of times you'll go to another website and it'll look similar, but it's not the exact same product. All the stuff I've talked about today are products that I've used extensively over the last couple of months, ever since I got the Mavic Air, and there are a lot of products that I didn't talk about today that didn't work out well for me, so I'm not one of those guys that loves to get into a clip and start bashing other people's products, but the 5 I talked about today are things that are in my kit that I use pretty much every time I go out to fly, and I find a lot of value in them, so hopefully you found the clip helpful. But that's pretty much it, so thanks again for watching, and until next time, happy flying.